Just cross it. All right. So that's fine. I get it.
Hey, that worked out really well. We're like on the way to the position. Yeah.
Okay, I wanted to welcome everyone to the Expanse, the greatest science fiction television series of the 21st century. My name is Michael P. I'm a senior writer at Friends of Comic-Con and obviously an Uber fan if you've looked at that Expanse. I'll be the moderator of the panel. Before the rest of the panel introduces themselves, I just want some quick housekeeping. We're going to have some prizes, and I need everybody who wins a prize to stay afterwards because I need to take a picture, because I'm going to be doing an article about Fan Expo and also about the panel itself. And also, too, the prizes were sent to us, the prizes we'll be handing out were sent to us by Alcon Productions, the production company for The Expanse. And so I promised them that I will send them pictures of the people who win, okay? So, I think that's pretty much it. Oh, and we'll be discussing all the seasons of The Expanse and maybe through book 6 and handing in obviously the other books and plus the novellas too, because season 6 went into one of the novellas. So, all right, so there we go.
You have been warned.
There I am again.
Hello. We're Mike buddies.
Okay.
Teacher Mike.
Okay.
My name is John Arco. I'm a pharmaceutical R&D chemist by day and a horror sci-fi DM by night. And I will talk to the Expanse about the Expanse to anyone who will let me talk to them about the
Hold on just a second. This is a special something. Again, if you'll take a look at this hat, this, like I said before, these came from the production company, and so this still has the tag that they had when they handed it out to the cast members. Okay? And this is for John.
Oh.
Because he's done all these panels, Expanse panels with me, so I figured he needs to get the award.
Stop it, you're gonna make me blush.
You can blush. That's a life goal for me now. I'm Chris Keller. Do you want to?
Go ahead.
I'm one of the original Screaming Firehawks. I did a Twitter and email and general harassment campaign for Amazon to pick up the show. Had to talk about it for. I'm the admin for the Expanse Beats, and during the day I'm a medical writer, and in the past I was a creative writing teacher at NYU.
Let's hold on for a second here, okay? And so she flew all the way out here from New York to be on the panel, and so I have something special for her too. And if you see any of the pictures from the set, especially that last season, this is the coat that they were wearing, right? And so if you take a look over here, raise it back.
There you go.
All right. My name is Scott Hudson. My title is a staff content engineer at ServiceNow. Formerly, I've also worked on the Boeing Delta rocket program at Boeing. I was one of the originators of the Colorado Screaming Firehawks, and I also made some Screaming Firehawk patches that were given to each of the main cast members that Mike was able to give them at San Diego a few years ago.
And Wes Chatham sent him a special video thank you message for the patches.
Yeah, it was super cool. Wes is a really awesome guy. I'm also a mentor at the Upper Creek Robotics program at Longmont. So if you have any kids that are into robotics, hit me up and we'll try and get them on the team.
Also, too, now, I don't have anything special for him because there's a reason. There's a reason for this, right? Because we're all big boys, and so they didn't send me anything for us big boy sizes. Okay, so that's one of the reasons. So. But he did some patches here, so and those patches. But you love your patches.
I do love my patches.
So I have one quick thing here as we get started. Question: Who's seen all the shows? Okay. Who's read all the books? Who's read all the novellas? Yeah, we're getting closer. Okay. Who's seen the series? Who's done a rewatch of the entire series? Wait a minute. No, all right. I'm sorry. So we have to go back. All right, I've got to narrow it down for a reason. I'm going to walk through this. Okay. Seen the entire series. Hands up. Okay. And read all the books. And read all the novellas. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay.
And
6.
the Boom comics.
Boom Comics. All right. Now, of you 4, who's watched the series through more than one time? No, we got 3. Okay, we're narrowing down. So, okay. Who knows the name of the Marvel superhero who was on The Expanse? Don't yell it out. But if you know the name, keep your hand up. Did I stop you guys? Okay. We'll put. Wait a minute. But he told you.
He told me.
That's okay.
And soon the world will know.
I have a question now. Do you have the coffee table book?
I don't.
Okay. Answer the question.
Thomas Jane on the Punisher.
Yeah.
What was it?
That's what I went
On the
for.
Punisher. No, but he's not a superhero though. That's a good one. Do you know who I was thinking of though?
No, I don't.
All right, Shang-Chi. Simon Liu. Remember the lieutenant. You remember now? Okay. All right, but
See, I just went Thomas Jane.
you get this one, the coffee table book. That was a good answer. So just come up and pick it up afterwards and we'll take a picture, okay?
You deserve it. You stumped Michael.
All right, so don't forget to come up afterwards, pick it up. That's a pretty spiffy gift. Okay, just real quick, let's just go through the usual here. All the books, the novellas, the time periods, when they took place and stuff, so.
Between different books.
Yeah, they're actually done, too. All right, that's another thing. It's the opposite of Game of Thrones, right? So they finish the series, but they don't finish the book. Wrong answer. Okay. The series. Here's Dragon. Did you want to talk about that for just a second? About Dragon 2?
Sure. Just so everybody knows, there's a couple of interesting things about the Dragon 2 series. It takes place, as you all know, there's the origin story that Boom Comics did that covers every individual main character's past before they got to either Canterbury or became a character on the Expanse. This one starts at the end of season 6, book 6, and goes through that 30 years time frame between book 6 and book 7. And I interviewed the author last month, and he said that there are a lot of interesting things going on in the story. One of them is he had been thinking, well, what's going to happen if, let's say, one of those Martian stealth ships is out hiding and doing the donkey balls, ubiquitous kind of thing. What happens if they don't make it through the ring with the rest of the people going to Laconia? So that's become a whole storyline in this that's going to develop into kind of like Lost Martians narrative. But you'll find it as the story goes on that there's a lot of involvement with Cass with Holden and Naomi and Bobby Draper. And so there's going to be kind of like a setup to book 7.
Okay, so, and you want to talk about this one too? Did you do Telltale? You did Telltale, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you want to talk about
Oh,
that?
yeah. So then, the Telltale game. I got to go to a preview and play the game. They had to drag me off of the computer after 2 hours. I'm a terrible gamer, so poor drummer did a lot of this and while I was trying to figure out the controls, but she's a saint. But the physics in the game are amazing. You can go on the float, you can turn on your mag boots, you can point the character to a spot and jump to it. You're exploring a wreck with your team, so you can go into, when they're out exploring, you can go off into their quarters and like check out their shit, find out more about them, which I kind of did, but it's important. And the game is being released July 27th. You will love it. It's not that expensive, and there's 4 episodes, and it's on PC, Xbox, and PlayStation. And if I love it, everybody's gonna love it, because it had to win me over.
Okay, now, did everybody know that there's going to be an Expanse online auction? Okay. Yeah, okay, this is kind of important. You want to take you might want to take a picture of this one, because a lot of, Chris has actually seen what they're going to auction off, because it was when she was in LA. And so they're auctioning off, some of Avasarala's costumes.
Oh my God. Saris and leather suits and jewelry. It's stunning. I guess you got tired of wearing them after season 6.
But I just wanted to make sure that you guys all knew about that and stuff, okay? So, all right, before we get into the why, I have one more, I'm gonna do one more thing, and so, okay.
You have the mic.
Well, this is gonna be probably for the ladies more than for the guys, because the size of here of what I've got here is small. Who is more powerful, Avasarala or Bobby? Bobby?
That's very subjective.
Define power.
Okay, let's leave that question alone, because
It's like, that's a panel in and of itself.
the women of the Expanse next year, okay? That'll be our thing next year. Okay, but all right, then let's just go with why. Why is it the best science fiction series of the 21st century? And in this case, I'm going to start it off. For those of us who are old enough to remember the original Star Trek, remember Klingon. And so we developed a language, and so people are actually getting married in Klingon now and stuff, right? And so the Expanse started out, and so we've already had the Belter language already developed. It's being taught at different places. In fact, Hannah, what's Hannah's handle?
It reaches out.
Yeah, it reaches, yeah. So she teaches this at the different conventions, because I was actually at one in DragonCon, and she was teaching it there, and she's an incredible teacher. And she teaches it the way you're supposed to teach a language. You keep talking in that language, and you get people involved. And so we've already done that. And it took Star Trek a while to do that. It took, I think about a decade before it became popular. But in the sense that the language itself was popular. So I'm going to start out with that.
Well, so the best way, I think, to get someone to believe a story is to put truth into it. And the Expanse does that by just having as realistic science as possible. I think I should get closer. So you have mag boots, the way the ships are built, so gravity actually works, flip and burns, everything, and you're so engrossed in that you're like, yeah, no, this is, I believe all of it. And then it's like, just kidding, proto-molecule, and you're like, no, that fits. I believe it. And for me, that more so than anything else, for like compared to other shows, like really drags me and really elevates the Expanse for me over most other shows.
I mean, I did fall in love with Mag Boots in January of 2015 on the very first, so I have sympathy for you. But I think the most important thing is the storyline. The Expanse started out as a role-playing game. There was an enormous amount of world building. I understand that the binder with all of the notes on this universe was about this thick. And the scope of the story covers the evolution of human society past the point of prejudice and the kinds of things that happen here on Earth to dividing people according to where they live and what kind of stresses are in their lives. So when they started writing the story, you can look at all the different leaders in the story and see archetypes that are still fresh and real people, and watch how their choices as leaders play out and affect other people, and how their stories begin and end. And throughout the story, you get these foreshadowing and little hints of what's going to happen. And for example, there's a comment that Abasarala kind of offhandedly says. She's looking up and watching shooting stars, and he says, "I worry about people who throw rocks." And that payoff doesn't come for another 4 seasons in season 5. But if you watch carefully in the beginning, you will see all these little Easter eggs and little hints of what's going to happen next, planted throughout that. And then, of course, they incorporate the technology. What do human beings do when they get a new piece of technology? And it's pretty freaking scary and true. So that's kind of my take on why it's the best.
Well, I like to, sorry, but Narain Shankar, who's the showrunner, is notorious for doing the foreshadowing. He loves doing that. And so I remember talking to him about it at one point, and he was, because I pointed at him and said, "You're foreshadowing, you know what you're doing." And he looked at me, he just started laughing and stuff, you know, but that was the thing, he loves doing it, and you have to pay attention. He's a very, very, very bright person. And I don't know if you guys know this, but the showrunner has 2 PhDs from Cornell, applied physics, and I think it was engineering, right? So, I mean, from Cornell. And he actually went to university at 16, and that's the showrunner. So that's how bright he is, okay?
And he was also a writer on
Yes,
DS9.
And he was a writer on one of the CSI shows too. Yeah, so I mean, and then plus he's doing writing, if you're watching the other show that's on Apple TV now, For All Mankind, his buddy, who's the showrunner for that, they were actually roommates. So he and Ronald Moore were roommates in college, so.
Well, I came late to The Expanse. I really don't think I saw the show, any of the seasons, until it was available on Amazon. And once I started finding out about the TV series, then I found out there's a book series. And what Ty and Daniel, James S.A. Corey, collectively, what they have created in the book form, right? I mean, the 9-book series plus the novellas, I mean, the volume of world building that's part of this series is just fantastic. And what I loved is the perspective from each character, right, as they're kind of going through the narrative. And, there's not necessarily good and evil people. They're kind of living out according to their perspective what, they think. And so, even writing from the perspective of Marco, right, how he came to believe the way that he did. To me, that kind of context shifting and perspective, I just found it really impressive. And then the science as well, was one of the other things that drew me in right away. Having that plausible science, that really stuck with me, because I hadn't really seen that as much in many other series, right? I mean, especially like Flip and Burn, right? I mean, there's no other way to break in space, So
As soon as I saw that first episode, we're like, all right, prepare, we're gonna turn around, and you're just like, this scene is amazing.
How about that fight scene when they came through the cloud there? The other, I think the Martian ships were firing on them or something, and then they flew through that cloud, and then he started firing on the other ships and stuff. I mean, that was like really, really awesome. And so I think too, the visual effects guys, I mean, if you look at that first season, the visual effects from the first season were top notch. And we actually got to see, I think in 2015, I think that they actually showed that on the big screen for us to see. And I think in season 2, they actually had a special showings of it at Alamo Draft House. And you see it on the big screen, and it looked just like any quality science fiction. It was just that incredible. And stuff. And so the other thing too, the writers. It's unusual for the writers of the novels to be in the writer's room because they have a tendency to divorce themselves away from it. And even with Game of Thrones, remember that George R. R. Martin was only there, peripherally. He was not in the writer's room constantly. Ty and Daniel, Ty was actually on the set. And so, and Daniel would come up every once in a while, but he tended to work from home, but Ty was actually on the set. And so he was working intimately with them. And so that brings me to something else for another prize here. Who remembers what planet Eros crashed on? You had your hand up first with the glasses. You had your hand up first. No, her. Right. Yeah, she had her hand up first. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, she's behind you. Okay. Now, do you remember the title of the episode? Oh, I know this. There's a reason why. It's a hard question, and you'll see why. Do you remember the title of the episode? No, it was episode 205. 205. Okay, all right. Do you know the name of the episode? Okay. Well, no, you still. All right, so this is what you win. Okay. Now, here on the back. Okay. So, all right. Don't forget to tell them afterwards, okay? So, all right. Let's go to the next one. Okay.
The name of the episode was Home, for those of you who didn't hear.
Oh, okay. And just remember that one, because I will, if we do a panel again, and you guys show up again, I always bring up that episode because that is one of the most, that is a favorite episode for the writers too, and for Bobby Rowe, who's a visual effects supervisor for that. These guys all love that episode. And Bob will tell the story, if we can ever get Bob here, if I can get him here, to come here on the panel, he'll tell you the story about how his wife always can tell when he's watching it because he has a tear in his eye, because it was just that emotional when they were making it. It was a beautiful, beautiful episode. Also, too, it created one of the biggest controversies. And the controversy was with, between Ty and the writers. Okay, and the writers of the episode were Mark Fergus and Hawk Otsby, and they used that episode to sell the idea to Alcon Productions, okay, about doing the Expanse. And the fight was over, and this is the question I want to put out to the audience. Miller kissed Julie, or the Julie creature. Ty thought that was wrong. All right, who thought the kiss was appropriate? Hands. Okay. Who thought the kiss was not appropriate? Oh my God. Okay. Not everyone else. Some people are just like
9 minutes.
9 minutes? Oh my God. Okay.
Technically, it's her corpse.
Yeah.
It's a little weird.
But it's all right. But see, the thing is, Ty agrees with the majority of it. He was foamy at the mouth about it, and he tried to stop him. But Thomas Jane wanted to do the kiss. And it, well, Florence is a beautiful woman. Okay, so and, because obviously it's really her there. But Thomas Jane wanted to do it because he felt that. And I'm going to explain from my point of view because I agree with Wes. Wes agrees with me. So I agree with Wes. Right? But my whole point was, it was the meeting of the human and the ethereal. And, it's just, she was the ideal. I know she was a creature and that whole thing with the, the blueness and stuff. But, Kurt, whatever.
I think he was just drunk on protomolecule.
I think that, I think for him, she represented the ideal because remember, she gave up so much, to help the Belters. I mean, her father, let's face it, her father was a trillionaire, okay? That's where that is. Yeah, no, her father was a trillionaire. And so she gave up all that to help the Belters. And so she represented an ideal to him, and it was an ideal that
Yeah.
Okay, no, that's fine.
Impressive.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay, so, but you guys, I'm going.
Okay, getting a little off topic, but yeah, no, I think Miller got drunk on her before he ever got to Eros. Like, just the idea of her is what he was focusing on, her herself. Yeah, and that was mainly his driving force. And he got to the end of it, and what do you do? He'd overwhelmed with emotions. But
You know, one of the things that makes me okay about the scene is that they had somebody on set who would check and make sure that everybody was happy with what was going on, and the two actors agreed to do it. They thought it was appropriate. But as far as, you know, as a human being, as a mom, to me that scene is just like, makes me cringe a little bit, because here's a woman who can't move or get away. I kind of don't, I have to remind myself that she's a protomolecule person, she's not a real person anymore, but it's still just, and she's trying to infect him so that whatever else is going on in the room, she's seducing him into becoming infected. Even though it feels the other way around, like he's taking advantage of a helpless person. So I guess I still have very mixed feelings about that scene.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that it was true to the character, you know, for his obsession, right, with the investigation and just how he kind of, you know, really built this picture of what Julie was to him, even though he'd never met her. And so to finally meet her, and then of course he gets exposed to the molecule, and he knows that, you know, that nuke, you know, that he's got his finger on, you know, he doesn't really have too many other options, right? So, you know, it just seemed like that was all part of that, true to his character. So.
And I think that brings like to a point, like another one of my reasons that I like The Expanse so much is just the emotion, both on screen and for me at least, watching it, like, and people watching it, like, you get so invested, and it just draws you in so much, and you get connected to the emotions on the screen. Like when I show it to people and then like the credits pop up at the end of the episode, they just turn to me and they go, I hate you. I hate you. So it's just so good for me. I don't find that many other places.
Well, and you know, just to touch on some of these other items, right? The sets and the props were just amazing in this series. The actors themselves, right? I mean, you know, Wes and Steven are probably my two favorite actors on that series. But I also love the character of Bobby Draper, right? Especially through the full book series. So, you know, if you haven't read all the books, I highly recommend them. You know, it's just amazing the depth that they build into these characters.
Well, and remember too, you're talking about the sets and the props, is that, and we talked about this a little bit earlier. Does everybody remember all the supporting guest stars throughout the entire series? I mean, these are all, these people are Academy Award nominees and stuff, and they're all, you know, Show Ray is an Academy Award did she win one? I can't remember. I think she's nominated. She was nominated. So you have this super high caliber of people that are working on this series, you know, and the supporting people that they brought in. I mean, these people are, you know, David Strathairn, you know, the guy playing Dawes. I mean, you know, and then the guy. Does everybody remember the one captain that was, I think, season 5 or 6, and he talked about how Marco was afraid of him because of his sexuality. Does everybody remember that line? I mean, come on.
I intimidated him.
Yeah. It's like you could fall. I fell out laughing on that one, but. You know, these people, the way they could deliver those lines. Do you remember the one belter, the big guy that Naomi promised, you know, that he could have her see? And do you remember how he told her, he said, no, you have things to do. You know, and it's just those lines, those small lines, but they're all so incredibly important. The Martian lieutenant who gave him control of the Rocinante. He says because yeah, remember, because they had a vision. He had a vision, and he was totally involved in that vision, and he sold it to us. You know, like, these are almost in any place else they'd be throwaway lines, but in The Expanse, everything is important.
Just so you know, the character Lopez, the actor, the writing team loved him so much, they kept trying to write a different character for him and have it look a little bit different, just to sneak him in again, because he was so on point with that whole.
But he was great, wasn't he?
Yeah.
He was a great Burke, okay? No, I think we've got to 10:20, I mean, 11:20. Yeah, so I think, yeah, 11. No,
It's 45 minutes.
45 minutes?
Is it
We'll go to
Good.
Okay. But no, I mean, but seriously, the level of those people that they brought in for that is just, I just thought was just, phenomenal. And, it's up there. Plus the fact, I mean, look at the so-called unknowns. We get Dominique in season 5, I mean, that was a tour de force. Show Ray, which, by the way, clearly, Show Ray should have been nominated for an Emmy. I mean, that one was robbed. That's just ridiculous. When you see some of the people who are nominated, and you see some of the work she did on that, I mean, in conversations, I remember in interviewing her, she was talking about that scene when they were at, when they wanted her to become the new Secretary General, and she was mourning over the death of her husband. And you remember her eyes were watering. You remember that? And in chatting with her about it, she says, "Oh, she did that deliberately." And I thought, huh? She literally, teared up, but wouldn't let the tears drop. I mean, that is some serious acting, folks. I mean, that's loving your craft, okay?
That whole scene was so amazing when she's trying to put on her jewelry and her hands are shaking so much. You're in her skin, feeling what it's like to lose somebody and like see the whole world falling apart. I thought that was one of the best scenes.
Well, and too, remember her son had been killed. Before we talked about that. With Kochar, and he had worked with Kochar, and so her husband was pretty much. I mean, she still had the daughter and the kids, but her husband, it's just there's just so much loss there, and plus all that weight of all the things that are going on at the same time too. So I mean, it's just the world building. We're drawn into that world, and they make us believe that it's real and there are real consequences because there's. I think the only person who didn't pay is Philippe. Philip, yeah. I don't think Philip paid for what he did. I mean, we know some other things. Okay?
Don't get me started.
No, but and it's. I just think it's just been very interesting.
Well, no, I kind of want to throw it out to the audience and see if
Okay.
anyone out here, tell us, what is we said why we like The Expanse so much. Why do you guys like it?
Well, I really like how they're trying to solve real life problems such as putting enough protein and making new, to feed everybody. I mean, these are things that we're dealing with now, and they're trying to figure out the science of that. And that when we transcend maybe racism, but we still have tribalism. So, you have your Mars and your Belters but it still goes back to those really human, tendencies and traits. And it has very real elements that really draws you in, I think.
Absolutely. One of the things I like watching it as it came out week to week, it felt like they were writing it 4 days before the episode came out. Because all of those episodes would be like, oh no, this just happened in the news. It felt so current.
For me, and I'm actually going to play on that timeliness to also say that it's timeless. Because what drew me in, so there's the cool side, there's the really neat ships, there's the beautiful CGI, there's the wonderful appeal, that curve. That's going to grab your attention. That's not what kept me going. What kept me going was, at its core, it is a human character-driven story with very grounded, relatable, flawed characters. And the setting, this is where we get back to the realism that all of us geek over, doesn't get in the way of that. It never jumps up, slaps you, says we're using quantum or something like that to fix all the problems. It never jumps in there and reverses the polarization. It is grounded so that the characters can do what they need to do and deliver their story.
Yeah, to be honest, Miller, Thomas James Miller, that's what hooked me into watching. And I don't know if it was because, recently I watched like Blade Runner or something, but that noir character, I mean, that really kind of drew me into the series.
My girlfriend actually got me into this and said there's a show you have to watch. I think you'd like it. I found all the things.
Smart woman.
I couldn't get away from it, but I found it as kind of an exercise in masochism for me because I love the characters, but you say that everything has changed, and I watched and I said, my God, nothing's changed. They don't even know what a protomolecule is, and we're fighting over how to control it and weaponize it. You guys are fighting over how to control gates, and the whole time I'm screaming at the TV, I'm like, are they ever going to talk about what might come the other way? But no one even thought about that because they were so busy trying to control it. And so I loved it, but it was so frustrating to watch and say that, hey, here we are, however many years in the future, and nothing has changed. Not from, you can anticipate, we're gonna fight, we're gonna, race, this, but you're a belter, you're this, you're that, and we're still fighting. So,
Before I get to you over here, right, what you just said is, a friend of mine who said, oh, it's the same as now. Well, the problem is, look 1,000 years back, okay? Look how much technology we've advanced, but are we still as stupid? I mean, right. So, two people had the hand up here. I think you were first, right?
I think the story arc of two specific characters is why I've read the series a few times. Naomi and the use of her hair and her body language and how she changes. There's a part in the series of books where it's in the show where it's obvious that Holden would have to save her, and he doesn't. He lets her do her own thing, and she gets herself out in one of the most brilliant ways I've ever seen. And then Amos, the idea of a person with sociopathic tendencies for good. How do you write that character? They do it beautifully and give alternatives, like the woman he fools around with on, what was that thing? The death plan. Ellis. And shows what happens if you have a good person support a sociopathic person and someone who follows a leader who is not that way. I just think the way that the characters grow over time, there's no stagnation. I would also marry Bobby Draper.
I'm just going to jump in because I do have a degree in psychology. Amos is not sociopathic. He has what's called complex PTSD, and it does have some similar symptoms, but that kind of person is able to grow and develop. They do have a sense of morality. It's just very close, and their empathy is kind of stunted by what they had to go through. And that's why he does grow, and that's why Carol Way does not. To her, everything is a formula. Even like whoever she has to kill to get where she wants to go, she was fine with it. So to me, or Chandra Way, sorry. But yeah, to me, there's a huge difference between those two characters, but you don't see it until that last scene together between the two of them, and then it's clear where Amos won't go. He's got the kind of loyalty that she doesn't. She has a superficial loyalty, whereas his is bone deep.
But do you remember too? And I think you know this. But you remember because Wes talked about this. He actually gave the short story that he's basically he actually gave it to a psychiatrist or a psychologist, I can't remember which one, and to get a reading on it, so to help him understand the character better. And so, in fact, one of the you guys remember in the first the spy from Earth in the first season, Kenzo. Remember Kenzo? Was it Kenzo?
Yeah.
Well, okay, Kenzo, the guy with the raspy voice. He tried out for the part of Amos, and they asked him why he used a raspy voice, for the tryout for Amos. And he says, well, no, that's the way he talks. And so, but just trivia.
He was a close runner-up for that part.
Huh?
He was a close runner-up for that
Yeah,
part.
he really was.
They liked him for a lot of parts, but they liked him for this.
But he also did something else too. Is that the motion capture for the protomolecule creature? The guy who played Kenzo did the motion capture for that one too. So again, trivia. You might want to remember that in case we do another panel.
It'll be on the quiz.
I thought the show being grounded in science really made it for me. I mean, I was learning stuff about space that I didn't know, or I thought I knew, but the turn and burn, I didn't. My wife and I were watching it, and I was like, what the? And I didn't realize that. So I was learning more science, the storytelling and the characters, but also that it was grounded in our solar system, that it was believable with the fact that sometime when we go to Mars, that this could actually happen. And so that kind of made it more believable to me.
But going back to that, Naomi in space, who believed that and who thinks that that was hocus pocus? Who thinks it was science?
Yeah.
It was science, and actually what they said is, what they did is they timed it. And so her movement across there, you can actually survive in space contrary to all the other bad science fiction, because people have survived in decades. But there are prices to pay, like, that radiation, because that even as far out as they were, that radiation is still an issue, and that's why, but she could, and you remember, she blew out all her air out of her lungs first, and then she, did the hyper thing too, and so they timed it. So if you rewatch that episode, time it and see.
There's really only one flaw in that episode. Other than that, it's textbook science, and it's one of the reasons a lot of NASA people love the show. But the only flaw was when she when she makes it to the airlock. She should have kept going instead of at the same speed she'd been, instead of gently floating. But they had to do that, to keep her from bumping her head on there.
Well, and the other thing with Naomi was when she made it to Illis, right? She desperately wanted to go down to the planet, and that was kind of the promise of opening the gates, right? Is that Mars? Why they would abandon Mars, where everything's under a dome and they have a promise of atmosphere, but for the Belters, right? Her bones never were able to densify under gravity, which I thought that aspect of the science was pretty fantastic as well. The problems that she had when she made it planet side.
John on the best.
Oh, yeah. So what I found really appealing about when I first started watching it, it was recommended by a number of people, but I grew up on Star Wars, Star Trek, all that fun stuff. But compared to those, it's a lot more. It's hard to use the phrase "down to earth" when you're talking about shows set in space, but down to earth and also more lived in. I'm just gonna, again, throw out a couple of the franchises. Star Trek, everything is kind of like sleek and shiny. Star Wars is lived in, but also nonsensical most of the time. And I feel like that the universe portrayed in The Expanse kind of hits that sweet spot where it's both, believable, but also like lived in. These are, you're seeing a couple of things that are still shiny new, but like for the most part, the technology is, at the point of the show is like decades old. You can see some of the old buildings on Earth, even dating back to present time. You see how everything's kind of like barely kept running. You see how people, especially the Belters, have kind of improvised and cobbled together their technology, which is it's I don't know, it's a fun aesthetic, and it's I feel like it doesn't actually, like that combination of realism and sort of like well-worn and comfortable you don't get that very much, and it's very appealing.
Yeah, I was going to actually say one of the reasons why we have the structure of the ships on that show is that Ty was a huge fan of Alien. So to him, that the Nostromo was like this ideal kind of like narrative construction, and the ship was exactly what it should look like in space. It's not pretty on the outside, your direction of thrust is where gravity comes from, and you got a monster in the house. In this case, the monster's some sort of molecule, but you see a lot of narrative tie-ins there, and also it's hard to get Ty to shut up about Alien. So
Did you just see one, two? We've got one person. We have two. So we'll do first.
We'll do two. We'll do him and then her. And then...
All right, him, you, and then you. Okay.
I've only seen season 1 so far on the show. So
Ooh.
Now.
We all start somewhere.
I've seen quite other sci-fi shows. In fact, one of the best things I like about the show, it uses logic that you would expect even in some of the modern sense. And like, I remember seeing like a long time ago, I saw something that said the Expanse had the best battle, realistic sci-fi battle ever to date. And I looked at this battle, and I was also watching Battlestar Galactica at the same time. And I'm like, if you compare it, it makes sense using a railgun, using a constant belt feed of burst fire. And then when I got into the actual show, I'm watching this, and I'm like, I like how they're using everything you would expect in a real situation. You got diplomacy. You're trying to prevent a war from breaking out and causing mischief and mayhem everywhere. You got the action part of it, of a crew trying to survive and clear problems up and make sense of things. And you got a mystery part of it, which is what happens a lot in war. One of the biggest phrases said from one of our generals in the past was, in war, the first casualty is the truth. And you get this idea that the truth is missing something. And you have a mystery and figure out where that is. And it's making all of these different points. And it's like, you see this in a real world scenario, and you're also putting this in a space where you're using a lot of logic. And what I can see that versus seeing Star Wars, Battlestar Galactica, Star Trek, Babylon. I can see the Expanse coming to life versus all the other side shows.
So just real quick, all right, since this is brand new, we're gonna make him an honorary Expanse P, all right? We'll make a real one after the all we can get
So one of the things we like touched on, but we're competing with, is music. So who knows who's the guy who does the music for the Expanse? Does anyone know his name? This is yours. So that theme, right? I mean, we heard the Star Wars theme, but that haunting theme, that opening theme for the Expanse, I mean, that's one of the things that just gives me chills when I hear that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hi.
No,
I was just gonna add on to the huge geopolitical story that they're telling, that they tackle these very difficult humanitarian crises, torture and those things, but I think it's also the bigger story about family. And all these characters have such complicated relationships with their children, with their parents, with wherever they are, and yet they've come together and found this family, and then when they kind of disperse, it really falls apart for them as individuals, and it's not kind of together that they can trust to move forward.
Guys,
I think a lot of fans are touched by that storyline because so many of us do have to create our own families, go somewhere else and find a new way to live.
I honestly think, we are ending real fast. One of the most important reasons why the Expanse is so good is honestly, all of us, fans, it brings together a whole bunch of people from different groups and makes us love one thing and we can make a safe space here. So we can all geek out about the Expanse.
So, just real quick, just to remind you guys, this is hashtag family comes first, okay? So, and
When I was little, I was fascinated by stars. I thought they were magic. When I grew up and I learned the real explanation for the stars, it became even more amazing.
Is it everything you thought it would be?
That way is the unknown. And yeah, there might be scary stuff. But there might also be magical things. Earth, Mars, the Belt, Ethiopia.
Who do we fight for?
Mars. Earth must come first. It's all bullshit. Shouldn't be anything. It's a beautiful dream, and I hope we're around to see it come true. But in this world that we live in order to survive, we have to pick a side.
They see the stars, and they think, mine.
You know, everything going on out there, it's all got to do with her. Julie Mel.
Vote him what you will. is proof that we're not alone in the universe. Earth changes everything. If we master it. What the hell is that thing? We can apply it. We're going on a hunt. If that thing out there really is some sort of human, from a crap hybrid, then
What happened to my tip?
we're yesterday's model.
Lift on and button up.
Okay.
If the proton molecule was here, it could be in 50 other places by now too.
We're just gonna have to fight on. As long as we're living and breathing, there's more we can do. We just have to be strong enough.
The proton molecule has changed everything, except everything it didn't. I don't ever remember a time when Earth, Mars, and the Belt weren't fighting. Science change sometimes. We think we're fighting for who we tell ourselves are the good people. But it just seems we can't ever stop fighting war after war after war. Got it!
The Academy really was a test. It's just the beginning. When I was little, I was...
So, thank you very much. And could we have all the prize winners come up and pick up your prizes, so I can take everybody's picture and stuff, so, and that's pretty much our presentation. Yeah.
Thank you all very much.
Everyone who's put a question, come up and get a booster, please.
I didn't give you one, all right?
If you don't have one,
Everybody else.
get a manual.
That's the